maybe the normal ones being a pilgrimage or a monumental thing, or maybe going to a beach or something. So maybe when we talk of special interest, perhaps it refers to a small niche of people interested in doing a particular sort of a thing. So under that category, definitely rural tourism would be our USP. After all, we have a lot to offer in our country, and then why not? And I'll just take you through a few slides which basically are a part of an experience of any tourist, whether of a special interest type or of a normal type, but more so in the case of special interest type. The first one is you see a guide. I have seen better audio guides, say in our Khazuraho temple or in the Alcatraz prison of San Francisco or recently in the Grand Palace in Bangkok. But then definitely when I remember a good tourist, someone in Bedaghat near Jaghalpur strikes me, and someone in Ayhole in Karnataka strikes me, because they were in the human form and they gave me a better perception of, or a better idea of, or a better feeling of the place, rather than the brilliant audio guides that I had elsewhere. Similarly, this guide, this is a tour that I took recently in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam, and although this guide was not well educated, but his impact on the tourists was wonderful. He was there with us throughout the day. So are we able to create similar guides in our places in India? Because for a tourist to get an experience, someone should be able to interpret the place or the experience to him or her. So that's done mostly by the guides. And the quality of the guides in most of our places is really worth thinking about. So a series of slides actually. This is about the versatility of the guide. So he knew about all the places, where to stop, what to do, and how to engage the tourists. So he is not only knowledgeable about the place, but also about the necessities of the tourists, or the requirements of the tourists. And then we have a boat ride on the Mekong River, and here he is demonstrating how honey is made. Maybe for most of those tourists it is new, but it's perhaps common to us. But if a similar tourist comes to our place, even coconut plucking might be a new thing for him, or an agriculture operation might be new to him. So are we really concentrating on such experiences? And here is about providing those local foods to the tourists, prepared by the villagers themselves or prepared by the hosts themselves, and offering them to the tourists. So it's also part of the experience. But are we don't gel with the environment? Mostly we pump in lots of money there, and ultimately they don't merge with the environment. But here they really did something that was going very well with the rest of the place. For example, Andhra Pradesh. How many of our places are really successful? And what do you mean by success in a rural tourism project? Is it contributing to the tourist experience, and are the hosts benefiting from it? Will it be sustainable? So these are the issues that you really have to look at it. And next one is, I just thought maybe I'll introduce you to the endogenous tourism project which we had implemented a few years ago, but now it is very old, everyone knows about it. Earlier, the Government of India's rural tourism project only used to have infrastructure. But then, there was nothing about service, there was nothing about the involvement of the rural people, there was nothing about the software. So that is when we in UNDP collaborated with Government of India, and then tailor-made this software, hardware thing, wherein the villagers can be trained in most of these things to offer those services to the tourists and benefit from it in a sustainable manner. So that was about the project, but I have seen very good projects outside the government funding also in Sikkim, Himachal, Uttarakhand. So lots of interesting experiments are going on without government's help. Maybe you can try some of them. And we have had a few failures also. But then, how do we really scale up these learnings? Are we learning from them? I am not sure about that. And say, why are we not getting it right? For example, when we go to Pochampalli, there is a very good interpretation center. All that is fine. I again went there last month, although I was involved in the beginning with that. But the better experience I got was not in the interpretation center, but in the house of a weaver right next to it. Right next to it, just across the gate. But are those people really involved in our tourism to Pochampalli? I am not sure. They say that we are not getting many tourists these days. Abhi to bus bhi band ho gaya. Earlier they used to tie up with Ramoji Film City and Pochampalli. We are not doing it, we are not getting tourists. But then how do you get tourists? Unless you involve the weavers, unless there is something for that to the host, and unless it adds to the experience of the visitor, why would he come again? And he only badmouth. So that's about the apathy in Pochampalli, for an example. Other one is, say, forests. Recently I read a travelogue about a wonderful trekking experience that a group of people had in the forest near Tirupati with the help of the Yanadis. They are the tribals who live on the edges of the forest, and they were their guides, porters, cooks and all that on that 2-day venture. But then are our forest department and Department of Tourism really opening these things up to these niche or so-called special interest tourists to really guide through, take them through and then help the villagers also in the process? Are we doing it? But then we are not really worried about those things. The other day I was looking at a newspaper while I was in transit in Bangkok. So here I saw the Philippines president being worried about the tourism sector. When was the last time that any of our big wigs were really worried about tourism in India? In the morning, some of these panelists were really worried about what is the spend per capita on tourism, and then how much of it is really going into the tourism sector, what's happening to various issues. But then look at the one that I rounded it up. There is something which the president said, which I really wrote it down. He posed a question saying that here we as a nation gone the extra mile to make our tourists the happiest visitors to the Philippines, the most fun place on earth. Philippines is not really worth seeing, as compared to India, for example. But then, as someone said today morning, the former ambassador to Philippines, they have registered a 15% growth in a disaster-prone year like this for Philippines. And they're really concerned. But are we really going the extra mile to make that experience for our tourists here? I'm not sure. And this is about not having a long-term strategy is one thing, and then not having an institutionalized learning also. For example, we do lots of projects, say rural tourism projects or some other projects, but then unless it's institutionalized, how will you really do a new project based on that? And how will you really transfer these learnings to someone trying it up in a new place in India?